2.
2 minutes in.
2 minutes in. We're on snack number 2. What was your first snack? Yogi bites, and now you're on to goldfish. Hey guys, it's Emma. Welcome back. Today I'm going to share a few things that have been going on. We took a trip out east, so I'm going to share some highlights from our trip as well as some homemaking once we returned home after our 10-day camping trip on the East Coast. So like I said, we took a very long road trip from Minnesota all the way out to Connecticut and then into Rhode Island for a camping trip with my in-laws, and we had just the best time. It was a very simple trip. We just camped and then we spent pretty much every single day on the beach, and we'd go to different beaches, and it was just so delightful to sit in the sun, read a book, enjoy the sound of the waves, and watch our children play in the sand for hours. One of my favorite things on this trip was probably the one day that my son just fell asleep right on my stomach on the beach. And he probably napped for close to an hour like this. It was just the sweetest thing. We really let go of all of our routines and schedules from back home and didn't really have the boys nap. They napped if they fell asleep in a car drive or on the beach if they were tired enough, but they're at a pretty good age where days without naps didn't affect them too poorly. One of the nights we took the boys to the casino, which I know sounds weird, but it's a lot of fun shops and things to look around at, and they had Krispy Kreme donuts, so we had to get some of those. They're things we grew up having as kids, and they don't have any in Minnesota anymore, so they definitely loved it. One of the beaches we go to has this little bay area where we spent most of the day collecting little hermit crabs. I wasn't sure how the boys would enjoy this part of the day, but they absolutely loved it and found it so fun to catch these little critters. After 10 days of camping in pretty extreme humidity and in a tent with the boys, I was definitely ready to get home and get back to my flowers and just all of the homemaking things. So now I want to just bring you along throughout my week as I do various homemaking tasks. One thing that was obviously on the docket was to get my sourdough starter fed and make some bread. But if I'm going to be completely honest, I fed this starter probably 3 times before I actually used it. I was just out of routine of making bread. I think in the summertime I don't think of turning on my oven to 500 degrees, and so I never think it's a good time to make bread, but I finally did it, and it was so delicious to have fresh bread again in the house. One thing I wasn't expecting when we returned was the emotional letdown or like the release of emotions from our children after having been gone for 10 days. And they did so well on our trip overall. I mean, we had a few hiccups in the road, as anyone does on a vacation, but the drive went really well for being in a car for 26 hours at a time, and I'm just so pleased with how it went. but pretty much immediately after we got in the door, it all started coming out. And there have been so many meltdowns and tantrums and emotions since we've returned. And at the time of doing this voiceover, we've been back for about a week and a half now, and it is still coming out. And I mention this because if you have a young one in your care, you may know how sensitive they are to change and to routines being thrown off. And there is a reason for this. It's not just that your child is being difficult. I'm going to get a little philosophical here on you. Maria Montessori, who we apply many of her principles in our home, she talks about human beings having human tendencies. And these are things that all human beings of any age do. And at different stages in development, there are unique characteristics that show themselves more strongly than at other times. And one of these characteristics for a young child, specifically under the age of 6, is this sensitivity or this characteristic and need for order. And so maybe you've experienced your toddler having a complete meltdown or tantrum because they don't have the correct socks on, or you put something in a different place. You might not even recognize what they are upset about, but they are having a big reaction to something that is out of order around them. And this can be because they are in a sensitive period for order. And so this is developmentally appropriate. And we can help our children in our home by creating order and creating beautiful spaces that are prepared to meet this need, following routines from day to day, having things have a place and have those things in its place. Dr. Montessori says a place for everything and everything in its place. And we can show empathy when these big reactions are happening to things like a change in schedule or a change in routine, and help our children to see that things may not happen the same way every single day. Sometimes I think I may still be in a sensitive period for order. Just kidding, I'm probably not, but I definitely feel highly affected when things are out of place and chaotic. It can be very overstimulating. So when we got back, I was motivated to get all the laundry done and get everything put away, but that was even a bit of a challenge with all of the needs that the boys had at this time of coming back and just settling into routine. So I tried to give myself a lot of grace as we just got back to normal life. A fun little change when we were away and our landlords were here doing a few things is they put brand new blinds throughout the whole house. And it is just so lovely to have these blinds throughout the home. They're very beautiful, and they're also very effective at keeping extra heat out in this part of the summer. I was thinking about how much our home has changed even since we moved, but especially as our boys have been getting older. And in Montessori, the space that you reside in, we call the prepared environment. So I think of our home not just as a home, but as a prepared environment. And that is something I take on as my role as mother, as wife, as homemaker, is to prepare our environment for optimal success. And that changes as our boys get older, as skills change, but always thinking about how am I fostering independence in this space? How am I making things accessible to them? How am I getting them involved in purposeful and meaningful work? And this takes a special work on the part of the adult to look at the areas in our home and look at our children, what they are capable of, what they may be capable of if we change some things around to make things more accessible to them. And it's a constant changing thing. As kids get taller and they get more capable, things are going to change. But the heart of it stays the same, in that we are preparing a space to meet the needs of all children in this space. Now, right now, for us, that is 2.5-year-old boys. And before, that was 2 little babies. And soon it's going to be 2 kind of preschool age children. And some of you may have toddlers and babies and older kids. And in those circumstances, you always want to think of the littlest one and making it safe for them. And so that might mean that you have things out of reach for some of your older children, or you may have things not fully accessible. So maybe you want to be able to have paint out, and your 4-year-old could handle that, but you have a little baby crawling around that would get into it. And so maybe you need to keep those things up a little bit higher, and your older child can ask you to get those things down so that you can more closely monitor that. I know that's a question that I have gotten before, is how do you prepare a Montessori space when you are navigating multiple different ages? And it can be tricky, but I think you have to think of your youngest one and what do they need for their environment to be safe. And then you can kind of work up from there and put things up on higher shelves, or things that your older children can get to with a step stool or by making a request, and that works well. I am making a brine for some refrigerator pickles. On our way home from out east, we decided to take a quick stop at the garden at my in-laws. We planted it for them. If you remember last year, we planted a very large garden, and then we moved 2 hours away. So I'll link the video from our garden tour last year. But we went there and things were very overgrown, but we found some cucumbers to make pickles and a ton of zucchini. And so I'm just getting all of these pickles prepped to do some refrigerator pickles. We canned some pickles last year and they just did not turn out very well. And we liked these refrigerator pickles a lot better. And so I grabbed some dill from our dill plant that we just have on our front step and used that to flavor these pickles. I just like how crunchy refrigerator pickles are, and they last for like 4 to 6 weeks in the fridge anyways. So it was a good thing for us to do. I will link the recipe down below if you want to give it a try. When you're spending all day at home, or a lot of your time at home, as I do as a stay-at-home mom, I really rely on beautiful things and little pieces of beauty throughout my home to just help me get through the day sometimes. And one little thing that I have been doing lately has been just putting some fresh herbs into some little pitchers that I have and keeping them in my windowsill and on my counter. Honestly, I will buy some parsley. It's like $1.50, and I will use it just to add some color into our home. Getting a bouquet of flowers would be another really good option, but this is significantly cheaper than that and honestly has a similar effect for me. I am just going to wrap up this video by making a really simple summer cucumber salad. I will also link this one down below. Just cutting up some cucumbers really thinly, adding some red onion to it and some red wine vinegar and a few different seasonings with some sour cream. This is just such a great, refreshing summer salad. I've been loving all sorts of fresh summer salads this time of the year. Well, you guys, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week for another video. Have a great day. Bye.